Hi, welcome back to Lightworker Training. My name is Tatiana. I'm so grateful to be joining with you today to get more into this topic of intuition and the development of intuition. And the topic of today's video is the language of intuition. So it can be really helpful to think about learning to rebuild. As I talked about in the last video, it's a natural thing that's been smushed and needs to be rebuilt. So we can all do this naturally. We all naturally have these abilities. However, it might feel like our capacity to engage these natural abilities has been diminished to a certain extent. And so it's like we're relearning. So as we are relearning this totally natural but not normal in our world way of being and operating, it's like learning another language. So everyone's intuition speaks a little bit differently, and there are a lot of commonalities, but it is important to recognize that the way that your inner teacher speaks to you, the way that the field of creation responds to you, and how you perceive it could be very different than someone else. And so I'm going to break down some of these kind of like language groups, that have certain things in common. But even within those groups, your dialect, so to speak, could be a little bit different. And so it's very important to just know this, because I've seen this happen again and again, because maybe somebody wasn't visual. They said, "Oh, I'm not intuitive because I can't visualize things." And after some probing and questioning, we discover that, well, their language is more in the kinesthetic realm. So they don't see energy, they feel energy, right? So you maybe have heard this talked about as like the different clairs, like clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience, right? So yes, you can think about it that way, certainly. But it can be even, I think, a little bit simpler to think of it in terms of sensations, thoughts, emotions, feelings, knowingness, and visuals. So some people are very good at seeing energy. Some people actually hear thoughts or messages, or it will even have sound quality to it. And there's all different ways. You probably have one that's really strong and really natural, and then others that feel potentially impossible. So you can practice and build up any of these, but also, just go ahead and use the one that works for you. You don't have to learn a second language. You can just take that one and work with it, and maybe at some point you'll just pick up another language as you go along. So just briefly, I want to talk about some of the ways that intuition speaks to us and just see if any of these resonate with you. So the first one I want to talk about is sensations in the body. So for some people, they can tell if something is off by a sensation in the body. And it could be like, the hairs standing up on your arm, or like chills going up your spine, or something like this. Like you might feel a pain in your body that's not even you. Maybe it's related to something maybe somebody else is feeling. So sensations in the body, very, very common way that the information comes through. So if you tend to be a big feeler of sensations, then I would recommend with things that you feel sensation wise, We also talk about feelings as emotions, so I'm trying to be clear. Um, it's really good to ask yourself, is that mine? Because this is one that's really tricky. We tend, especially with things going on in our physical bodies, to always assume that that is the feeling of our body related to something going on in our body, where it could be something that is not personal to us at all. We could be sensing things, sensations in the body related to a transpersonal energy, which is kind of a mind blower for most people who, if you've never encountered that idea before, that you can actually um, experience all kinds of energies as sensations in your body, and it might not be personal to you. That might be kind of a wild one, but so if this feels like it could be you, or you want to play around with this, ask yourself, who does that belong to? Who does that belong to for things that you experience in the body? And you might notice, like, wow, when I said that, the energy shifted. So maybe it wasn't mine. So another way that I just mentioned is more of an emotional feeling. So you could say that the feeling is a way that people tune into intuition. They feel this, they feel that. We use this language a lot. I feel like, this is like this. Oh, I feel like it could be this. So the feeling, it could be a physical sensation in the body. It could also be emotional. So feelings will sometimes show up as emotional energy. So you maybe have seen this where you're feeling fine, and then you're around somebody who maybe is running a very high or intense emotional energy, and there's like some bleed through, and you maybe pick up on it, um, or you might not even have contact with anybody that you know of because it's remote and not in person. Um, but you might feel suddenly sad for no reason. Well, a lot of us will think, oh, that must be my sadness, because we haven't been taught, we've actually been taught the opposite, that we can feel other people's feelings even if they're not around. So sometimes you will get a confirmation on this. Like, if you suddenly feel really anxious or really sad out of the blue, and then maybe later you talk to a friend or a family member, a loved one, and they say, yeah, something really sad happened to me today, or, oh, I've been so stressed out, or I've been really anxious. And you can even take that as your cue to tune in and ask yourself, like, wow, was I feeling their feelings? Was I feeling their emotional energy? Also, very common, very, very common way of picking up on information and energy. So another way that things can show up is in more of a mental way, which can show up a few different ways. So in the head, we've got eyes, ears, and brains, right? So sometimes we'll just have these thoughts going on, this mental energy, and it's kind of a narrative. Um, it has almost like a talking kind. Oh yeah, we have a mouth. Has like a talking kind of energy. Um, that's sometimes how the intuitive information shows up. You think you're just having a thought yourself, but you're actually thinking somebody else's thought, or your subconscious is putting something in there, the collective subconscious is putting something in there, but you might just suddenly think to yourself, like, man, maybe I won't take the bus today, maybe I'll drive. And then you find out later that there's some accident with the bus or something, right? You just had a thought, you had this idea, you didn't know why, but you thought, yeah, I'll just drive. Okay, so it could the thought form could show up more like a voice in your head. So some people hear voices, and it feels more like an audio kind of experience more than a mental experience. So that is less common. Hearing voices is less common, but it's a thing. Um, Sometimes you can discern what the information is based on or where it's coming from based on the voice and the timbre or the intonation, the energy, or the sound of the voice. So that's another way that information can come through. Yeah, maybe you think you're just sitting there talking to yourself, but are you? Maybe might be good to ask because a lot of these things we kind of dismiss or we take for granted because we haven't been taught what is really going on here. And you won't know until you ask. And then, you'll start to develop your ear, your psychic ear, your psychic radar. You'll start to be able to discern the messages, where they're coming from, etc., a lot easier. Another way that the more mental type of energy comes through is through visuals. So sometimes people actually, just like people sometimes hear the messages with their ears, sometimes people are seeing visuals with their eyes. They're literally seeing things that are of a subtle energy that we normally maybe aren't aware of with our range of visual capacity. We know there are all kinds of rays on the spectrum of light that we are unable to perceive with our physical eyes. Well, some folks, they actually can see some of these more subtle energies visually with their physical eyes. So there's ways that you can train this if you're interested. And we'll talk about all these kinds of things. And then some people, their visual that they get is less something that they're seeing out there and apprehending with their physical sight. It's more a picture in their mind. So some people are very visual in that they see a lot of pictures in their minds. So these are all different ways, and there are variations on all of these, and there are kind of mashups, crossovers of these different things and how they show up. So one of the trickiest ones, so I save the best for last, is just simply knowing things. So we all have this capacity to simply know things. And like I said, there could be sensations, emotions, visuals, sounds, thoughts, and all kinds of things that go along with that. But on some level, we just know. So this is something that's actually been trained out of us, and we've been really dumbed down, really dumbed down. And so we're all kind of retarded in a sense because we've been trained to shut down our knowing, shut down our caring, shut down our feeling, shut down all of these aspects of ourselves, so that we can be good little citizens in the system. But it is perfectly natural to just simply know things and not be able to explain it, not be able to say how it is that you know that. You just know, like that example I gave of, you get this thought, yeah, maybe I should drive instead of taking the bus. Now, if you follow through on that, there's some part of you that knew that you should just drive your car, right? Because if you didn't know that, you might be like, well, why would I say that? Like, I'm just gonna take the bus anyway. um, or why would I want to drive my car? It's so wasteful or whatever. So we've got all these programs that will start to show up, um, all of the doubt and like not trusting and stuff like that. So we'll get into that. um, but just know that simply knowing things and not knowing how you know is a really tricky, but also super powerful way that intuition comes through. And that one can take the most practice to get back in touch with, is just the ability to access consciousness and information directly and simply know things directly, have direct knowingness. And it's like in your bones, there's no doubt, you just know. And it's like, I don't know how I know, I just know, so a lot of times with this knowingness, it's instantaneous. There's not a thought or a dialogue or pictures or anything. It's just an instant download of the information. So it can be tricky to apprehend that, because it can come through quickly, and then just as quickly the programmed belief system comes in and tries to squash it. And it does that, the internalized toxic authority figures, the internalized system does that to keep us safe, because that's what we had to do to survive our social conditioning, and to, just kind of play along, to get your like basic human needs met, until you get to the point where you can take care of yourself and start to clean this stuff up, right? So just know that you might be a knower, and this is actually extremely common. And also, um, it's the hardest one to get back in touch with, but it's really powerful. So, how do we start to um, really take in and get this communication going? Maybe you don't know what the language is yet, or the dialect for you is yet, but just keep these things on your radar and start to tune into, like, are you a visualizer? Are you a knower? Are you a thinker, a feeler? So start to pay attention to that, and pay attention not only to the form of the message. The form of the message doesn't matter. Okay. What matters, there's no order of like, I've seen people do this before, and I'm just not, I don't vibe with this, maybe I'll change my mind, but I'm not into the thing of like, well, claircognizance is the highest, and clairvoyance is the lowest, or whatever, I don't buy into that. They're all valid. They're all totally practical and wonderful, right? They're all great. So the form doesn't matter. What matters, and what you should pay attention to, besides the form, you want to just pay attention to the form, and just to not gaslight yourself. If you're a feeler, just know that about yourself. If you pick up on thoughts, then know that about yourself. You got to know yourself. You got to know what your language is. But it doesn't really matter, other than for you to be able to tune into it, if that makes sense. What matters as far as interpreting the message is, you have to pay attention to how it feels for you. And I think there are like archetypes within the collective subconscious, but that could be different in different cultural type of settings. There are some that seem to be cross-cultural, but what's really important is to pay attention to how it feels for you. You have certain associations with certain symbols. Everything's speaking in symbols. And how does that feel for you? That symbol, that sensation, that feeling, that visual, those are symbolic of an energy that's being communicated to you. Language is symbolic, right? We're talking about the language of intuition. How you interpret the symbols depends on what those symbols mean to you, not anyone else. So pay attention to your first impression. When you're getting these hits on things, you want to go with the first impression that you had. What was the feeling? What was the picture? What was the download? And how did it make you feel? Okay. Or what did it make you think of? Some people aren't feelers. So if I say feel, 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 you're like, I don't know, I'm not a feeler. What was your impression? That's it. What was your impression? Go with your impressions and go with your first impression before all the programming comes in and me. So you can always go deeper. You can always question. I do like some healthy skepticism. You can always dig a little bit, but don't discard the first impression. You'll save yourself a shitload of time. Just take what's given, save yourself some time, and then build on that. So beware of other people's interpretations and the meaning that they make of it, because that may not be accurate. It might, if they're able to pick up on what it means to you and then help you to see that, then that could be accurate. How do you know? Pay attention to the resonance. When they say the truth, it should resonate with something within you. They should be able to feel into, to interpret correctly, they should be able to feel into what's going on in your energy, how you feel about it, and help you to interpret it. And then if they're correct, you should feel that resonance within you. But I would say trust your own reads, which is very tricky. It makes sense that you wouldn't trust if you really didn't know what you were doing. But for now, I just want to say trust your own take on it. And we'll talk more next time about trust issues and intuition, because we all got them. So until then, I hope this has been helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time on Lightworker Training. Bye for now.